Story 1. A couple of days after my cousin came to pick up the kids after being dragged off the cruise ship, Fax got back in touch and asked a few follow-up questions. During the conversation, they mentioned they had contacted the kids' biological father and informed him of what had happened. I didn't even know he was still around. From what I remembered, he'd moved out to regional NSW years ago, I think somewhere near Wagga. Apparently, he's been paying child support and trying to stay in touch, but my cousin made it almost impossible. Would ignore his calls, block him, cancel visits, that sort of thing. Well, when he found out what she did, leaving the kids to catch a bus alone in winter and dumping them on our doorstep, he was furious. Drove straight to Sydney that same night. He came to our house the next morning. Genuinely nice guy, clearly shaken but calm. He said he just wanted to hear everything from someone who was there. We sat down and talked for a while. He asked how the kids were, if they said anything, and what exactly happened. You could tell he really cared. Then he told me straight up, he's going to apply for full custody. He said he's been documenting everything for years, the canceled visits, the excuses, the strange behavior when the kids did come back to him, and this was the final straw. Leaving them like that without even a message. He said he wouldn't let them grow up thinking that was normal. I told him I fully supported him. Those kids deserve stability. He thanked us for not turning them away and for taking care of them when no one else did. Then he left to speak with a solicitor. Now, on to something I didn't expect and honestly still can't believe. Our car was vandalized last night. All 4 tires slashed. Nothing else touched, just the tires. We noticed it this morning when my girlfriend went to head out. No note, no witnesses. Unfortunately, we don't have cameras installed, but we've asked neighbors if they have any footage from overnight. Can't say for sure who did it, but given the timing, I've got a few guesses. Especially since a family member called us yesterday blaming us for turning the family against my cousin. No proof yet, but we've reported it to the police just in case. Honestly, we're exhausted. We didn't ask for any of this, just tried to do the right thing when 4 kids showed up freezing on our doorstep. The entire family believes her version of the story. I'm thinking of compiling a Facebook post with all the information to prove what happened, as things are getting serious now. Story 2. So me and some of my coworkers had a little get-together during the weekend after a very stressful week. It wasn't anything fancy. We just decided on the spot that day to go to a park and have a little picnic by the creek. Just some beers and takeouts. We posted photos on Facebook. The following week, we were informed by HR that Karen made a complaint that she was being ostracized and it was affecting her mental health. Karen, by the way, being the micromanager that she was partly responsible for making the previous week very stressful. We challenged HR to find anything wrong with spending the weekend with people you get along with and paying for food and gas with our own money on our own time. As you can imagine, nothing happened. The following week, we posted another batch of photos of our group at the beach with some more people from work and made sure Karen saw it. Story 3. So this one happened over the past few weeks here at my work. I am the Quality Assurance Manager and Workplace Health and Safety Officer on a large farm down here in Australia. Part of my role includes making sure people are trained for their respective roles, jobs, and tasks, as well as arranging formal, accredited training. As part of the ongoing drought, the government was nice enough to arrange a one-off opportunity for all us farmers in our corner of the country to take advantage of. They provided a bunch of different training courses to be held here in our little farming town that could be attended by anyone who can prove they work for a drought-affected farm, all completely free. Once I found out about this, I jumped onto it and signed a heap of our employees, as well as myself, up for various courses. The boss was ecstatic, as this was saving him tens of thousands of dollars in training, as well as travel and accommodation costs. Plus, it came at a really great time as the training for several of our employees was set to expire soon and needed to be refreshed anyway. One of these people was John, fake name. John is a serial whiner and know-it-all. He's the type of guy to complain about hot weather while wearing jeans, a long-sleeve shirt, and a thick vest. Or complain about how he has no time in the day, but spend literally over an hour leaning against his car chatting to a workmate, and then another hour betting on horses on his phone. He also loves to enlighten people with all his supposed knowledge of farming and agriculture, including my boss and his father, who are third and fourth generation farmers, have decades of experience and expertise, and have been in the business since their teen years. Plus, his worst habit of all, he refuses to speak on his phone into the microphone and instead will use the loudspeaker. Plus, his ringtone is the most annoying and stupid jingle you can imagine. He has zero phone etiquette, and it drives everyone mad. John needs several qualifications to fulfill his role. One of these is the qualification to safely handle, use, and dispose of chemicals for use in agriculture, herbicides, pesticides, etc. His certificate actually did already expire, but our season hasn't fully begun yet, so it hasn't been a problem. He was signed up to attend this free course, but he came to me on the Friday afternoon before the course, which was set to begin the following Monday, where we had the following conversation, not verbatim, just the gist of it. "I can't go on Monday as I'm too busy here," John said. "Is that so?" "Yeah, there's just too much going on here that needs my attention. I'm going to have to do a different one." "There are no different ones. Not free ones anyway. Plus, I don't think you'll find one that's..." I tried to say that he won't find one that's both in our town and that can be done before our season begins. "Yeah, that just doesn't matter. I've heard there are ones that only go for 1 day. This one goes for 2 days, which is just ridiculous. I can't take 2 days off." "Maybe you should talk to boss about this. The course is on Monday. You've known about it for ages. You couldn't have figured it out sooner." "Mate, I've just been too busy." All I think at this point is that this conversation so far has taken less than 60 secs. But apparently he's too busy to spend 1 whole minute telling me he's too busy. "Well, you better go and talk to boss about it. Not much I can do about it now." He then makes a random apathetic grunt. He left at this point before I had the chance to correct him and say that the 2-day course is for people who have had their training expire like him, and the 1-day course is for people just doing a refresher. Fast forward to Monday, and the boss calls me. Long story short, John didn't tell him anything about it until just then. Boss was not happy with him. His exact words were, "I'm freaking filthy with him," and told him as such too. But his main reason for calling was to ask more about the course and the other options available to John. Having already done all my research months ago in the initial planning stage, I told him that the only other available courses before our expected season kickoff date are a good 5-hour drive away, and they cost around $3,000, not including travel expenses. Yeah, I thought as much. Well, that will freaking learn him. I told him that his options now are to either go and pay for the training himself and claim it on his tax, or skip it and cop a pay cut, seeing as he can no longer do any chemical handling. The boss said. I was internally laughing hard. I see. Fair enough. Stupid jerk isn't even doing anything that important. That's why I swung past his area today, as I thought he wasn't going to be there, so I figured I'd better check on things. He was off doing some crap in the shed, while everyone else was out in the paddock. They didn't even need him. Yeah, right. So shall I put some of these options for him in an email to him or something? Yeah, mate, go ahead and do that. Save the busy man some time and do his freaking research for him. Haha, no worries. So not only did he get himself in some deep crap, but now he's out of pocket a crapload. Plus, I got to be the one to let him know exactly how much by in a nice little email, where I also let him know that he does need to attend a 2-day course. Story 4. Hey everyone, been a lurker, and honestly never expected to encounter an entitled mom in the wild. Context: I gave my younger brother my entire Lego collection when he was around 6. 8 years later, he decided to build all my old sets and display them around his room. I mostly had the 1999 to 2005 Star Wars sets and few City/Adventurers/Rock Raider sets. He built all the 1999 to 2002 Star Wars sets and was missing one. The 2000 Millennium Falcon was the last set he needed to complete his collection. I was feeling nostalgic and a bit butthurt since when I was a kid, I wanted it badly but never got it. I knew a toy store that sold vintage Lego sets in the box, and this is where the story begins. During my lunch break, I decided to visit the toy store to see if they had the Falcon, or at least an unboxed version. Honestly, I was just going to get my little brother a Christmas gift and wasn't planning on actually finding it. Lo and behold, they did actually have an unopened set. I walked over to the register and inquired, and after a bit of haggling, I was able to get a good deal on it, $150 for anyone wondering. I had done a bit of research online and saw some for crazy amounts of prices. I paid the amount, got my receipt, and waited while the toy store owner brought it down from a very high shelf. This is where I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I turn towards Karen and the kid. She sweetly asked if she could please go first as she just needed a small toy to purchase for her baby. Since I already paid, I said sure, go ahead, and she waits for the toy store owner that was helping me. She starts saying things like, "Hello, is anyone working? I'm running late, excuse me," etc. I decide to intervene and tell her that the toy store owner is just getting something I purchased. She rolls her eyes at me and starts talking to her kid saying he'll get his toy soon. He was about 7-ish. The toy store owner finally comes with the Falcon and the kid starts going crazy for it. Karen smiles and tells the lady that she'll purchase that toy immediately, to which the lady states it's not for sale. She goes into crazy mode and starts cussing out the lady while demanding to see the manager. The toy store owner states she is the owner and manager of the store and her word is final. Karen huffs and then asks who purchased it. The owner ignores her and asks me if I still want the toy wrapped. At this point, I just wanted to get out of there, so I decline and state that I would just take it as is. The owner hands it to me, and Karen immediately starts cussing me out and telling me I don't need toys and that I'm just a man-child that has no job and no value in life. I start leaving, and the kid tries to no avail to get his mom's attention. Karen followed me out the door and somehow was able to snatch the receipt from my butt pocket. She stood there smugly. She was wearing a face mask, so I could only imagine the grin she had underneath, and demanded I hand the Falcon over. I turn and finally, out of anger and annoyance, I tell her, "Over my dead body, Karen." The kid calls out again to Karen, and she says that he'll get his toy soon. He asks to hold the receipt, to which Karen gives to him. He then proceeds to hand it over to me and apologizes. I honestly was taken away by this, and did not expect this at all from a 7-ish kid. To top it off, he says, "I'm not supposed to be here anyways. My mom just got tired of me being in Zoom all day for school, and she's super cranky." Karen goes crazy and proceeds to berate me for stealing her baby's toy. I thank the kid and leave, not bothering to turn back. From a distance, I just hear the kid say, "I don't want that anyway, I want a PS5. Story 5. Sorry for the dry spell of tales about my crazy entitled mom. This one took me a while to get from Dad and occurred after he retired from the Navy. I believe around 2012. Their marriage was rocker than I'd seen it before. Mom always loved to complain about things and paraded herself as the one of higher moral fiber because she preferred discussion to arguments, which I felt was rich since all she did at home was argue with Dad and try to pit me against Dad by pointing out flaws, which were just coping mechanisms for dealing with her. Years before we'd met an artist we'll call Ella at a local art show. Our relationship with them started with my brother Donald being quite taken with a piece of art in a way he'd never taken to art before. The petite woman worked with mosaic glass, and every piece was guaranteed unique, handmade and stunning because of it. Mom hadn't wanted to spend over $100 on something my brother may not appreciate for more than 15 minutes, but said we could come back later if he still wanted it. Near the end of the show we did return, and the piece had sold, which saddened Donald visibly, and he moped the rest of the day, unbeknownst to me. Mom and Dad had been contacted by the artist, who offered something similar made from the same types of glass, with similar elements to those he kept touching in the piece that had sold. Donald loves his piece, still touches, dust, and smiles about it. The reason for this one and only duplicate was that Ella had never seen a young man so taken with her work before, and she wanted to make sure that a good relationship with art could be nurtured. We got a piece every other art show we saw Ella at around the state we Ella her at, and she was quite pleased to say soon we could visit her gallery, as she was planning to set up a permanent space in a community that was known for its artists and the thriving community of locals and tourists who came to get unique pieces. She also happily told us she was setting up an online store where she planned to sell her pieces to reach a wider audience, and this is what would eventually cause Mom to go full-on Karen later. Dad had just survived a company merger and kept his job under a new boss, but with a bigger office, so he thought about what he'd want to put where and remembered Ella's work and her online store. Of all of us, Dad had nothing of his own, and he browsed the store for a while to pick something the size of a standard store-bought canvas. He listed his office address instead of the home address for the delivery address and thought that was it. He got an invoice for his purchase and was told that he'd be provided a tracking number as soon as the product was shipped. This would have been the end of the story if it weren't for one tiny thing. The website Ella used suffered some sort of failure, and she lost the receiving addresses, but was able to regain the names of who bought what, if they were a repeat customer who'd had things mailed before, and some email addresses. So the piece Dad bought was packaged and shipped to the house, followed by an email to Mom about the piece and its tracking number. Mom lost her unholy crap and accosted Dad the moment he got home about trying to hide things from her. There was a lot of yelling, and Dad tried to explain that it wasn't for a lady friend or a coworker. It was for him and his new office. Mom insisted it wasn't for that and said she was going to return the piece the moment it came in. Dad had to email Ella to see what went wrong with the mailing address and to get the tracking number since Mom was refusing to give it over willingly. This is where I thought the story stopped as I moved out shortly afterward, but apparently Dad had to call out the day the piece was to arrive to prevent Mom from making good on her threat or worse. Apparently, the fact that Dad was buying custom art for an office space Mom would never get to see, which meant the items were also beyond her power to use for leverage or destroy if she got mad enough, was truly unpalatable. She packed her butt into her Subaru and drove the better part of several hours in rush hour traffic out of town to Ella's new gallery. Sadly, this day Ella was in, and Mom confronted a woman smaller than herself for daring to sell her work to a paying customer, aka Dad. I know my mom, she loves to get into people's faces, and her southern drawl comes out, and Ella is a prim proper lady with a European accent who, due to some kind of trauma in her past, had a larger personal space bubble than normal. I am confident to say Mom likely got in Ella's face and was practically yelling as she towered over the artist, while Ella sidestepped to try and maintain the personal safe space she preferred. The gallery co-owner, Ella's friend, was apparently called in and had to call security to escort Mom out, and was informed she was banned from returning. Ever since, Mom has had nothing nice to say about Ella, who she used to get along with swimmingly, and has gone out of her way to cut Ella out of her friend circle. Dad has since gotten a few more pieces also kept in his office and maintained a friendly relationship with Ella, who at one point considered a restraining order against Mom. Ella felt terrible for mailing to the wrong address and explained to Dad about the lost data, which he understood. I, however, feel awful for Ella, as I never knew the full extent of the story before this. Especially knowing that Mom, after much badgering, had convinced Ella to sell her first piece of mosaic glass art. Ella and her dad, who passed away years after the piece was done, had worked together to create a huge, unique piece that was Ella's connection to the best part of her childhood. Ella had wished Dad had won it in the divorce, as she felt he deserved it, but Dad, being the bigger man, let Mom have it. Story 6. This happened a few years ago, and to be fair, they weren't the worst couple I have dealt with in my career. but even so, wow, were they jerks to work with. So the backstory. The groom was a rich businessman from the UK that was marrying a single mother from Africa. Based on the ways their families conducted themselves, it was clear to say that their backgrounds were vastly different. I had been hired to do the wedding video. I was shooting alone, rather uncomfortably I might add, as I had filmed a different wedding the day before and all the service providers had gotten light cases of food poisoning. Their wedding was on a Sunday, and, as I had been hired by the bride's side of the family, their budget was fairly limited. Therefore, all pre-ceremony coverage had been cut from their package. I arrived about 30 minutes before the ceremony to see the groom cussing out the DJ about something, I don't actually know what. The ceremony started and didn't add much to the story. The bride's stupid lawn pin, my company's name for kids, was screaming throughout the entire ceremony, making it impossible to hear the sermon and making me feel oh so happy knowing that I was going to get tasked trying to clean up that audio after. Oh, the joys of wedding videos. Cut forward to after the ceremony with everyone gathering for the couple to sign the register. The couple entered the room and saw something so horrendous that Hitler himself would have shielded his eyes. Right there, right where they wanted to sign, there was a book lying on the table. Gasp. Get the manager straight away. This book has to be removed. The jerk groom yelled to the closest person in earshot. It took me a moment to register what had just happened before I took a step towards the table, simply picking up the book and putting it back on the shelf. So you'd think this would be the end of it, right? With Satan's obstacle now removed, they could simply sign the papers and go on with their lives. Nah, this had upset them so much that while they took some time alone to rant about how inadequate everyone is and how this book has ruined their entire day, the room had to be cleared. I'm not even joking. They really did say that the book had ruined their entire day. So eventually the damn register gets signed. The two most dramatic people in the world are now husband and wife, and everyone is standing outside, waiting to throw them with confetti, or maybe hand grenades if there was any justice in this world. And we wait, and we wait, and we wait some more. Finally, the door opens. We wake up from our afternoon naps on our feet. The guests hold their hands ready to throw, only to see the master of ceremonies walk through the door and announce that they won't be coming out as the bride doesn't want the wind messing up her hair. If I had rolled my eyes any bigger, they would have come out of their sockets. Why? Because the bride, not the groom, but the bride was from this area, and she knew the wind never stops blowing. Did she think God was going to pause the weather for her, while the rest of her guests stood outside burning in the sun for almost 15 minutes? Anyway, move forward to the reception. The couple shoot and family photos had to be postponed to later, because for some reason, the bride thought the wind was going to change. This meant that everyone now entered the reception hall more than 90 minutes earlier than the schedule had stipulated. So what does the groom of the year do? He goes and yells at the wedding coordinator that the first course isn't ready yet. Needless to say, this caused some panic in the kitchen. I should further point out that this wasn't your average 3-course meal. This was 8 freaking courses. So the schedule was something like this. Speech, course, multiply that by 8. The opening of the dance floor, bouquet and garter, etc. I did my setup quickly as the first speech was about to commence. Only one problem. The number of guests was way too many for the venue's capacity, so there was literally no way for me to get anywhere near the bridal table or the podium where the speakers would be making their speeches. I set up as well as I could, a basic 2-camera setup, and took a stand behind the main camera. During the speech, I glanced in the direction of my second camera, only to see the bride's lawn pin is trying to climb up my tripod. How the camera didn't fall over might prove that there is a higher power up in the clouds, but nonetheless, I sprinted towards it, grabbing the kid before he could knock over the camera. I put him down, telling him politely not to touch. The camera had moved during the kid's action and was now no longer pointing in any kind of relevant direction. I glanced back at my main camera, only to see that the speaker was no longer standing behind the podium and had gone to stand directly behind the couple. I had missed it completely. I sprinted back to my main camera, readjusted the shot, glanced back at my second camera, only to see the damn lawn pin aiming to try and climb up it again. Once more, I sprinted back to my second camera, picked the camera up and set it up right next to the main one. This was the most boring setup ever done in my career, but it would now have to do. The speech eventually ended and the first course was served. I was the only person service provider not catered for because, honestly, who cares about the videographer? To be fair, this didn't bother me because I wouldn't have been able to eat anyway, but I was still feeling like death and really just wanted to rest for a short while. I waited for the guests to start eating before spotting a sofa at the back of the venue and deciding it looked like a great place to rest. I had just sat down when I was approached by the jerk groom and the lawn pin. "Groom, what are you doing now?" I immediately get back on my feet. There's really nothing I can shoot at the moment, so just waiting for the next speech. Was there something you needed? Yeah, please watch the stupid kid. And yes, he really did describe his new stepson as the stupid kid. Huh? Yeah, just keep him quiet and make sure he doesn't disturb the guests. What about when the next speech starts? Thank you, the groom said, walking away without answering my question. I looked after him with pleading eyes. This wasn't happening. The kid stared at me. I stared back at him. He continued staring at me, and then started wailing his eyes out. Damn my life. I thought to myself. I looked around frantically to see if any of the kid's relatives were gonna come help, but nopes. Giving in to my fate, I climbed down to the floor, opened the kid's backpack, and started unpacking his toys. The kid stopped crying quite quickly as I let him show me his favorite toys. Skip forward about 15 to 20 minutes. The kid and I were in the middle of an intense dinosaur battle when I heard the next speech starting. I had asked the mech to give me a 2-minute warning before each speech so that I could have time to set my cameras up again. I, unfortunately, had to move them away every time so as to not block the traffic flow of the waiters. He forgot every single time. I missed the first few seconds of the second speech as I redid my setup, only to hear that the kid had started wailing again. I glanced in the direction of the couple who were both staring at me with daggers in their eyes. I stared back at them with a look that said, "What the hell do you want me to do about it?" and left the kid to cry as I tried recording the second speech. The speech ended. Well, I assume it did. The lawn pin was yelling so loud that I never heard it end. But I'm sitting here typing this story, so I think it's a fair bet. I moved my cameras away again and moved back towards the couch when I was bombarded by the couple. Bride, why weren't you watching him? Me? Because I can't play babysitter and shoot your wedding video at the same time. Groom, well, I told you to watch him. And your wife paid me to capture your day on video. Again, I can't do both. Bride, well, that was very embarrassing for us. A silence followed this, with me and the couple just staring at each other. Me. Are you waiting for me to say something? Just go to your job. The groom snapped before stomping off with his new wife. Which one? I yelled after them, once more getting ignored. The rest of the reception played off more or less the same, until I was relieved of my babysitting duties by the bride's sister, aunt, mother, hairstylist. I have no idea who the hell she was, except that I now had to share my sofa. So the reception finally ended. I felt like I had just aged 10 years, and it was now time for the family and couple photos. But what was this? Their praying had helped nothing, and the wind was now blowing even worse than before. Now at this point, any logical bride would probably have been asking herself some questions. Specifically, what difference is it going to make if my hair gets messed up now as almost everything has already been done? And what is the point of even having my hair done if I'm not going to take any decent photos? This bride didn't ask those questions though, and therefore insisted that all her photos, couple and family, take place on the porch, on one single, small spot on the porch. So the shoot went like this. I finally got them in frame, and the main photographer blocked me. I tried a different angle and the second photographer blocked me. Hell, I didn't blame the photographers. This was like trying to fit 6 people into a matchbox without taking out the matches. There was simply no space for all of us, and the couple had left this so late that the light was disappearing by the second. If this poor photographer had 20 minutes for all the photos, then I'll be surprised. The next thing to do was getting all the guests back upstairs for the opening of the dance floor. Both the photographer and I had about an hour left on the clock, so we were at least doing well for time. The photographer and I started back up the stairs to do our setup, but were suddenly stopped by the MC. The mech informed us that the bride was tired, so she and the groom were going to retire to the honeymoon suite and would return in about an hour for the opening of the dance floor. The photographer and I looked at each other with kind of a what the hell expression, but shrugged it off and went to wait upstairs. News of the couple's temporary departure quickly reached the guests, and within less than 30 minutes, the entire reception hall had emptied with the exception of the waiters, bar staff, photographers, and myself. Another 30 minutes passed with no sign of the couple returning. Both the photographers and I were now off the clock. The photographers waited another 15 minutes before, literally, saying, "Screw this," and leaving. I wanted to do the same. My God, did I want to do the same. But the video I had taken so far was so bad, it was nightmare fuel bad, and I simply could not bring myself to leave without at least capturing the opening of the dance floor, and so I continued to wait for another 90 minutes. Finally, the couple returned, followed by around 10 or 15 guests. All of them now wore their casual attire and looked like they were ready for a night at a dodgy nightclub. And then I heard the words that finally made me lose my patience. "MC, the couple isn't going to open the dance floor anymore." I stared at the couple with a livid expression on my face as the hip-hop music started playing. The groom took to the bar and the bride started throwing grotesque dance moves with her grotesque friends, all now wearing scantily fitting outfits. Seeing this, I picked up my gear and walked out of the room without saying goodbye to the couple. I did, predictably, get an email from the groom a few days later, telling me to remove all the lawn pins crying from the video and that they expected the video to be a true representation of their special day. That I can say it definitely was. I delivered the video exactly as it was.